Hello, hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. Thanks for coming back to my channel. I am Angela. I am a full-time voiceover artist and audiobook narrator, and my channel is dedicated to those of you that are just getting started out in this wonderful world of voiceover and audiobook narration. And through my channel, I share with you some techniques and, tips and tricks that I use every day in my own voiceover business, and I answer your questions. And today is Tuesday, February 8th, I believe. Yes, it is. And I'm going to try to do this every week because I think it's helpful and it's fun for me, and I think you guys get something out of it. You get to get your questions answered. So here we are. And I'm going to do another live Q&A here on YouTube. And I wanted to first, there is a poll that I have going here because I'm very curious to know what you guys would think because of the whole, AI and audiobooks type of thing. So I wanted to get your take on what you think. I mean, would you listen to an audiobook narrated by an AI? I'd like to know. Go ahead and cast your vote in the poll, and we'll revisit that throughout our session here and see what everybody thinks. But before we get started with live questions, I wanted to address, and I have to apologize, I've been just uber busy, like razor's edge overbooked, maybe even overbooked for the last week. Spent a lot of time in my studio trying to get caught up. So I apologize. I've fallen way behind on corresponding on just about everything. I feel so bad. But let me hop over to some of the other questions that were placed here on YouTube on some of my other videos so I can just address those really quick because I don't want you guys to think that I don't care or, I'm here. My hands were kind of tied for a little bit. So, Rebecca Perry asked, she said, "Hi, Angela. I would love to hear about how you go about doing multi-books. Wow, 6. Do you work on one at a time or have maybe 3 different files or books in your DAW and work on each? Wow, you're amazing. Please do tell. I'm learning from the best." Stop it. Well, I think I did mention somewhere, I think maybe in the last live, that I currently had 6 audiobooks in queue, and I don't like to have that many at one time, but it was just one of those things where I have one client that does children's books, and they placed like 3 orders at one time when I was already working on 3 others, and they were super time consuming, but I got them done. So those are done off my plate, but they were not just spelling, but there was music involved and specific timing, and so very, very time consuming. But they're done. But to answer your question, I do, depending on my time frame or how much time I have with each book, I'll try to bounce back and forth between them, or if it's small enough, and it really just depends on how much time I have with each and how big each of them is. If they are novels per se, then I'll probably do like 2 chapters on this one, 2 chapters on this one, 2 chapters on this one, that sort of thing in a day, and then just keep moving forward like that if I can. But if I have to break them up, I will, and just work on them concurrently throughout the day, and then squeeze in other things as they come up. But it really just depends on how many I do. 6 was too many. 6 was too many at one time, and they were all due within, maybe a 30-day span. So it's tough. Now I'm down to 2. I'm in the editing stages of 2. Of 1, and the other one that I need to get rolling on. But everything else, the other 4 are done. So let's see. There was another great question here that I wanted to grab. Jacob B. asked a couple of days ago. He said, "Not sure if there's a video that answers this somewhere that maybe you could guide me to, and maybe this is an obvious question, but what is your setup while you're recording? I've seen you mention highlighting characters and such, for example, but are you using a paperback copy to read off of? Do you just edit out the sounds of the page turns, or is there a good way to do this on an e-reader? And is there anything else you need to keep by nearby while narrating. Thanks, love your channel. Well, Jacob, I think in the very beginning, I was printing off scripts, but that's not very environmentally friendly. What I try to do is I ask my clients for a PDF or a Word doc of their manuscript. And if I have time, I at least want to skim through the book at least once. But you could also, having a digital copy of it, you could mark it up and highlight and add annotations. You could add, maybe places where you need to put in some inflection, where the character voices change. But I have a monitor in my studio that's bigger than my first one. So it's big enough now where I can fit my DAW and the script together on my screen side by side. I think at some point I'm probably going to have to get two monitors just so I can not have to flip back and forth between things because it makes sense. But for now, my monitor screen is big enough to fit both on one screen so I can see what my DAW is doing, making sure it's still recording while I'm narrating, and then also see the script. So that is essentially what I have. Before I got the bigger screen, I have a tablet in my office here that I was reading off of. So my mic wouldn't change positions. Positions. It would stay right here. So my DAW would be on my monitor, and then I would be this way, maybe with a microphone, maybe pointed a little bit more off axis. But anyway, but then I would narrate from the tablet here and then have the DAW here. So that's what I used to do. But with the bigger screen, I'm always facing this way, which kind of just streamlines and speeds up my workflow, if that makes sense. So I thought those were great questions, and I wanted to address those quickly. So back over to my live stream, it looks like I'm doing the buffering thing on my screen. So I'm hoping you guys can see and hear me okay. Let's see. Let's hop back over to the poll really quick. Okay, so we've got 16 votes. And again, the question was, would you listen to an audiobook narrated by an AI? 24% of you said yes, and 76% of you said no. It's interesting that I don't know if I could. I don't know if it could give me, I know AIs are getting better and better and better, but until they can perform and emote where necessary, I don't know if I could. Just as an example, if you've been scrolling through YouTube and you watch any of those like top 10 type of videos, or you know what I mean, and those are narrated by an AI, I don't watch them. I scroll past them because it's just, maybe it's just because I'm a voice actor and I know, maybe, I don't know, but they just don't, I don't think that they can do it for me, but that's my opinion. I'd like to hear your opinion. What do you got? What are your thoughts on AI? Looks like we had another vote. Okay, so now we're down to 22% yes and 78% no. Okay. All right, let's hop on over to our questions in the live chat. We've got Andy Moore here. And again, if you have a question, just want to say hi, type it in the chat, and I'll answer your question live here on the stream. Andy Moore says, hello, how are you? Hello. Just woke up from an afternoon nap with enough time to grab a coffee before the start. That sounds like an awesome day, Andy. I can't take naps. My whole circadian rhythm just gets thrown off. I can't take naps. Unless I'm thoroughly exhausted, I can sleep. But, once I sleep, my body's just in complete zombie mode. I'm just totally worthless for the rest of the day. I can't do that. But good for you. I mean, it sounds like an awesome day. An afternoon nap and a coffee. Padrika is here. Hello, Padrika. Good morning. Great morning to you, Angela. Great morning to you, too. Kirk is here. Hello, darling. Good morning. Here's an interesting one. I was working over Zoom with someone whose noise floor was -76 with, I was promised, no processing. Just USB mic to computer. How do you fix something like that? Well, I think, I don't know. I don't know how that's pretty impressive. That's a pretty impressive noise floor. I think as long as it's not silence, I think it would still be fine for ACX. Um, Again, I think ACX is just trying to prevent people from pasting in silence to address their noise floor because it's too much of a difference between the noise floor, the natural noise floor within the narration, and then just complete silence. It's a little jarring, and you can definitely notice with some people in their noise floors. So I think even a -76, I mean, if they've got a booth and it's like completely soundproof, and I mean, I've never seen one that low, but I mean, if that's the case, then as long as it's not silence, I think it would still fly for ACX noise floor requirements, if that makes sense. So interesting. Kesha Shari says, hello. Hello, Kesha. Tone Chaser says, good morning, Angela. Good morning, Tone Chasers. I'm feeling good today. I'm 1 day old on Fiverr with 5 active gigs. How are you? Well, happy birthday. Happy Fiverr birthday. That is amazing. 5 active gigs. That's really, really cool. I am fine. I am very fine. I'm actually still recovering from this weekend. This weekend was, I think, Thursday, Friday, and I think I posted about this on Facebook a couple times, but Thursday, Friday, Saturday, I was pretty much in the studio nonstop, up early, stayed late. I had all of this work that was just all at one time, was just not really, it was me pushing my own boundaries on how much I could get done within a certain amount of time. And then a client dropped 3 small audiobooks in my lap, like all at the same time. And it was difficult. And I'm still kind of recovering from just, my editing wrist and thumb are just sore, but I'm feeling good now. I feel like I'm mostly rested. I've caught up, I think, a little bit, but hey man, when there's work, when it rains, it pours, but you got to do it. It's feast or famine most of the time, right? So you got the work, you got to do it. DJN 1012 says, excuse me, although that wasn't included in the question. Although I love your AI question, I think the VO community will be biased. Yeah, I totally agree with you, but I just wanted to, there's so many varying opinions in this community. And I've seen a lot of different voiceover artists have lots of different opinions on this. Some are open to it and are embracing it and want to get involved with the creation of the voices, albeit a small percentage, but still. And then there's other voiceover artists who are like, absolutely not, there's no way. And then there's some that say, maybe, so, I mean, believe it or not, there's a lot of varying opinions on this topic. And I just wanted to see what you guys thought, because I think it's a very interesting thing. But you're right. I think I'm a little biased. Padrika Gray says, just got my first contract. Congratulations. Oh, I have a clapping button. Hang on. Hopefully you guys heard that. I have a little clap. I hope you guys heard that. I know I'm a dork. ACX audiobook noise floor requirement asks for between -50 and -60 dB. If the ACX plugin says I pass at -76 dB, is that fine when I upload files? Or is their range static? You cannot get any higher than -60 dB for the noise floor. That is the cutoff. I would try to stay close to that number, like between -65 and -60, I think is where I would try to stay, because anything lower than that, you run the risk of ACX's software saying it's too quiet or something of that nature. You could try it. I mean, if the checker that you're using says that you pass, you might be fine. But and that even goes back to what Kirk was saying earlier about the noise floor being so low. If you have a noise floor that low, then that is just amazing. Kudos to you and your setup of your recording space. But I think ultimately, as long, like I answered before, ultimately, if it's not silence, I think it's fine. But, technology is not perfect. Sometimes the software catches things as issues when they're not really issues. So I wouldn't tempt the fates and just try to get as close to -60 without going over as possible. But again, ultimately, as long as it's not silence, I think you're okay. Um, Kirk says AI doesn't breathe. It sounds dead because it's not alive. So I guess technically it would be. Although some of them are pretty good. They're getting pretty good. Uh, I heard one the other day that was pretty convincing. It took me a couple of seconds before I realized it was an AI. So they're getting pretty good, but they really can't inflect or emote like a human can or breathe. Jim Champine says, same. I don't think I could connect with an AI voice. Yeah, it would be hard. It would be hard to connect with an AI voice. I typically just scroll past them. I don't even like on even with TikTok. And you guys know I'm a TikTok dork. I love TikTok. And when they have the voiceovers on TikTok that are the AI voices, I think there's like 2 or 3 different voices. Even those are a little bit irritating at times, but it's just kind of a TikTok thing. And the creator might not know how to do their own voiceover for it, or don't like their voice, or have a horrible environment to record their voice. So they use the TikTok voiceover. So I can't hate on them for that, but, I would rather hear the creator's voice, to be honest. I don't care what your recording space sounds like or where you're recording it. As long as I can hear your voice, I think that would be better. Kesha Cherie says, I'm a new voice actor narrator. Well, welcome to the community. Welcome to this big, loving VO family with big open arms. I have 3 projects done, and I just finished my first solo project. Congratulations. I'm still working on my volume in my mic. Any suggestions? Suggestions on volume with your mic, or just general suggestions for voiceover? It's a very broad stroke of a question. I'm not exactly sure. Could you be more specific with exactly what it is that you're asking questions about? Is it a technical question about your mic, or is it more kind of a Keisha? And then you corrected me right underneath. Keisha, Angela. Keisha. Gotcha. All right. So if you could maybe narrow it down a little bit for your question, I'll be happy to answer it for you. Melissa Barton Briggs says, I'm just getting my equipment set up, testing how I should record to get the best sound. So far, a desk in a small bedroom, completely untreated, has been the best. Have you ever heard of that? Yes, although I would definitely be listening for, in this kind of an environment, I would definitely be listening for reverb. Although you just might have a magical recording space if you don't hear boxiness or reverb, or your voice doesn't get too lost in the room, then you might just have the magical recording space. Although I haven't heard of anyone getting away with completely untreating their room in some respect. I do know some voice actors that one of whom works in their basement, and the only wall that she has treated, it's a completely untreated basement, but the only wall that she has treated is the one directly in front of her. But you would think with this big open space behind her that she would have, reverb and echo and just kind of this loud airiness sound, and she doesn't. I don't know how she pulls it off, but she does. So you never know. I mean, I'm pretty open-minded when people start to explain their recording spaces to me. But then my brain is so programmed because my space was just a challenge to get rid of the reverb in here. Granted, it's a small space, so my voice would easily travel and bounce off every surface in here and then into the mic, because this is a 5x6 storage closet, basically, that ultimately I had to cover every single wall with some sort of a soft moving blanket, some soft surface to reduce the reverb and my voice bouncing around the room. So, I mean, it's completely possible. I think it would be honestly unlikely that it would be perfect and like recording, narrating, voiceover ready. I would record some samples of yourself in your untreated bedroom and listen intently for reverb, boxiness. Are you losing any depth to your voice? If you belong to any Facebook groups, you could always post a sample to a Facebook group and ask your peers what they think about your voice, because you might just be used to hearing what you're hearing in that room. So getting someone else's opinion might definitely help in that respect to really be sure that this recording space is voiceover ready. It's worth a shot. But you really need to be critical about these things and make sure that you're listening out for, I keep saying it, but reverb, because that was the first thing that pops into my head when you say bedroom, in the corner of a bedroom, because bedrooms aren't that large, and reverb is definitely typically an issue. But and then you say, or am I so new that I can't hear that it's bad? I wouldn't say bad. I wouldn't say bad at all. Most of our recording spaces, no matter where you start or where you can get in to make your recording space, are usually not perfect to begin with. They usually need a little bit of work and a little bit of tweaking, and usually some sort of a wall around you that needs soft surfaces on it to reduce the reverb. So, but it does take a while for you to train your ear to listen for these things, because you're just so used to hearing your voice one way, right? So that's where a Facebook group and you sharing your sample with them or something of that nature, to get someone else's second opinion, someone that has a more trained ear for that sort of thing would probably be helpful. Padrika Gray says, thanks so much. You're welcome. Keisha Cherie says, thank you. You're welcome. Keisha says, distance off axis on. Okay. The rule of thumb for mic placement is if you do this old hang loose, hand gesture, about that far from your mic. Actually, my mic is a little further back as a pop filter. So it's about like that, 4 to 6 inches roughly. And depending on what kind of mic you have, you typically want to be a little bit off axis anyway. Pop filters are great for reducing plosives, talking directly into the mic, to reduce the p and the d, and the th sounds. But being just a little bit off axis, meaning you're still close to the mic, but your mouth, the air that puffs out, is pointed in a different direction instead of into the mic. It's going past the mic. So that might help reduce the sound of, the intensity maybe of some plosive. Plosives. Good Lord, I need more coffee. But generally, this distance, 4 to 6 inches, is good. And I go off axis, especially with the shotgun mic, because it can just pick me up directly in front of it. But then I speak past it instead of into it, if that makes sense. Goodness. Keisha says, what's wrong with me today? Recording my voice is sometimes loud, sometimes quiet. Trying to get my mic set so my volume stays consistent. Yeah. It also depends on what you're recording. If you are changing the volume of your voice, that would definitely do it. If you're doing something that requires some acting, maybe a little bit more volume to your voice, take a little bit of a lean back from your mic. It takes a lot of practice to stay consistent in volume when you're speaking into your microphone for a project, especially if you get into long form like, audiobooks or e-learning, because you do need to stay at the same kind of volume and projection of your voice without sounding too monotone, because you're focusing on your voice and the volume, and there's a lot going on in your head. But I'm hoping it's not an issue technically that you're having, that the volume is going in and out. I'm just going to assume that it's the volume of your voice, which I'm hoping it is, because that's an easier fix than finding a problem technically and trying to solve it. Um, but being cognizant of the volume that you're speaking and trying to keep it consistent. And again, if you have to shout or get loud, just take a little bit of a lean back from the microphone to kind of even out that volume so it's not so drastically loud and quiet, if that makes sense. But also keeping the same mic placement consistently throughout all of your projects will also maintain that volume from project to project to project. So that's why I always say have a dedicated recording space and a place where you can set up your mic and then not touch it. Once it's all set up the way that you want it, the sound's great, everything is great, don't touch the mic because you need it to be in that same place to help you maintain that consistent volume and sound from project to project to project, or chapter to chapter to chapter, because it's important. And I'm rambling. Ma Candy VO says, "Hey yo, VoiceOverAngela." It's been a few weeks. Well, it's good to see you back. Thanks for hanging out with me this morning and everybody else here today. Thank you, thank you. Janine Y says, "How long does it usually take to hear back about ACX auditions? I just submitted my first audition. Wondering what the ratio is for auditions won versus not." I would say, generally speaking, if you submit about 10 auditions, you might get 1 to 2 offers. Just like everything else in terms of business or running a business, it's a numbers game. The more times you present yourself, the better your opportunity is for finding the author who had your voice in mind for their project. So, and then just keep in mind also that every time that you get that email that says, "Sorry, you were not chosen for this project," it's not because you stink or because you're just horrible. It's because your voice wasn't what they imagined for this project. It just means that your voice was not the voice that they were thinking of or wanting or looking for. So it's not really a rejection. It's just you're not the fit that I was looking for. It's not necessarily a bad thing. But you do have to audition. You have to just do more than one and then sit and wait. Send out 10. Give yourself a goal. Say, okay, this week I want to submit 10 auditions a day, or 5 auditions a day, 3 auditions a day, something to keep you moving forward. So when you have 10, 20 auditions, then you should have at least a couple books offered to you. That's typically what I hear, but it is different for everybody, because sometimes I have people tell me that they submit 3 auditions and they get 2 books, they get 1 book. And then there's also other people that tell me they do 15 auditions and they get no offers. So it's a little bit different, I think, but also I think the genres that you choose to narrate, or maybe the types of books that you choose to narrate, if you have like a low, deep, gravelly voice, male voice, I don't think you're going to be perfect for a children's book, right? So you would have to think about your voice, and if your voice could be a fit even for the type of book that you're reading. You want to not waste your time or the rights holder's time in narrating a book that your voice is probably not a good fit for. I mean, perfect example was the male, deep, gritty voice for a children's book. I mean, that might not be fitting, but you never know. I could be completely wrong, but I think you're picking up on what, you're picking up what I'm putting down here. But the more auditions you do, the better your chances of getting an offer. And sometimes those auditions or the rights holders they go on vacation, they're going through tons of auditions, and sometimes they put the project on hold and don't communicate that with you. I think I have an audition that I did like months ago that's still sitting in pending status, like they haven't chosen a narrator yet. So you never really quite know, but you can't sit there and hold your breath on that one audition. You have to keep going. You have to keep auditioning because you never know what that rights holder is going to decide or if your voice was the fit that they were looking for, right? So keep going and keep auditioning because the more you put out, the better your chances of getting a book to narrate. So I hope that answers your questions. There really isn't a specific ratio. It's just a matter of, um, I don't want to use the word luck because it's not luck. And I've mentioned this before. I think I used the word serendipitous. It's that chance that you take that your voice crosses paths with that rights holder that was looking for your voice. But obviously, the more times that you do that, the better your chances of crossing that path with that rights holder. I hope that makes sense. Okay. Lost my place here. Okay, Keisha says, I treated my bedroom closet with moving blankets. Nice. My noise floor is -60. That's perfect. So then after it's all processed, or is it after processing is -60, or is it -60 to start? Either way, that's pretty good. That's awesome. Keisha says, it's me. Awesome. Oh my gosh, I lost my place again. Oh, let's hop over to the poll really quick. 29 votes. Okay, so 17% of you said yes. Ooh, 20% of you said yes. And 80% of you said no. It had just changed. So 30 votes. Wow. Okay. Interesting. Okay. Jim Champine, and I'm hoping that I'm pronouncing that right. The moving blankets are great. I did add some rock wool insulation under mine, but they do work well. Good. Almost everything in my space is repurposed material, but turned out pretty good. I think you shared pictures of this on my Facebook group, right? Dude, you did a really good job. I really liked that. And I loved the fact that you repurposed material because I think that's important. And it adds character too. And not only helps the environment. So I love that. And it's cost effective too. You're just repurposing what you already have. Makes sense. Keisha says, thank you for your feedback. You're welcome. Thank you for asking. Padrika Gray says, can anyone suggest a comfortable chair that does not squeak when it swivels? I bought 4 chairs and they make noise. WD-4 ain't working. Well, dang it. That was the first thing I was going to say. Padrika, you're not alone. I know of at least 1 or 2 other people that are currently looking for a chair that does not squeak. My chair has yet to squeak, although I think if I tried hard enough, I could probably get it to squeak. I'm guessing that you're recording while you're seated, which would require the chair to be quiet. Can you stand instead if you're having such issues with chairs, or maybe not move so much? I know these are obvious questions, but apart from, let me just say, I love my Secret Lab chair, the chair that I'm sitting in, this chair, backwards, this chair. I love this chair. This chair is super comfortable. It's a gaming chair, came with a killer warranty on it. It doesn't make noise. It's super comfortable. And dragons. So I always recommend the Secret Lab chairs. There's tons of different patterns and styles and colors. It's not just this one. But they are an investment. And but I think knowing myself, I would really get into those chairs and not only WD-40 the crap out of them, but I would also probably find pieces of, I don't know, I would find ways to kind of MacGyver them, to keep them quiet. Although I'm assuming that you've already done all that. Maybe you just need to try standing to voice act. I don't know, but personally, I would say Secret Lab chairs are awesome. Do those. However, if someone else has something else to recommend, that would be helpful too. I I've heard some people recommend the like drum stools work. A yoga ball probably would make a whole lot more noise, right? We'll have to think on that. Let's see if anybody else can recommend something for you too. Melissa says, thank you. I think I'll try getting feedback from others and see what they say. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great idea. Ma Candy VO says, I want to thank you, Angela, for all your supportive videos and affirmations. Thank you. Since I was last here, I got my first audition role for an indie video game. What? Hang on. Something small but official, NDA and all. That is awesome. Congratulations. I love doing video games. They're so fun. Janine Y says, thanks for the advice. I feel like one audition took me longer than expected to perfect. So I might try to set a weekly goal for the amount of auditions I do. Yes, and streamlining your process for auditions is going to help you a lot as well. Don't get too caught up in perfecting an audition. Record the audition, edit out the mouth noises and the mistakes and the big breaths. You can leave the small ones in, get it to ACX's standards, and then submit it. You don't have to spend hours on it. An audition, a 2 to 3 minute audition, should take you maybe 15, 20 minutes tops. Tops. And that is even maybe redoing it a couple of times. But you really need to figure out a way to streamline your process so an audition doesn't take you most of the day or hours, because it's a numbers game. You need to get more of those done in a day and then move forward with the rest of your work, or looking for work elsewhere, or completing the work that you already have. Time is money. You got to keep moving. So it takes a little bit of practice and a little bit of, as you go through the process, as you discover ways to maybe merge 2 steps or skip a step, or figure out a better process for that step or a better place for that step. And then you start to really streamline, and then they start to just go faster, faster, faster. So, but definitely more than one in a day for sure. But having a goal will definitely help you too. I lost my place again. Ma Candy VO says, it's so amazingly validating to know someone heard my performance and thought, yep, this is the guy. Holy cow, it's such a good feeling, and you've been such a positive influence. Thanks. I'm so glad that you guys find value in what I provide. It's very validating. Thank you so much for saying that. Keisha Cherie says, -60 to start. Wow. I have someone working with me who is also my dual narrator. Well, that definitely helps. It definitely helps to have someone else there to not only to narrate with, which I think keeps it lively because you can kind of feed off of each other, but also someone that sounds like they know what they're doing with the technical side, which is awesome. Very handy. Jim Champagne says, yep, a video. A video. Okay. So I'm pronouncing that right? Or did I just confuse myself? Oh, yes, the video on, that's right. Yep. The video on my Facebook group. Yes. Stay focused, Angela. Adina Flores says, hi, Angela. Do you have different or special pricing for producing children's books since they are so short? I don't. I think having different brackets of pricing could be dangerous in terms of upsetting clients. And that's been asked before. I personally think they should be a different price because they are so short. But I think in the scheme of things, in the bigger picture, it is what it is. Um, I find that most authors who write children's books write more than one. So there's a good chance that if you do one for a small amount, I mean, it could be more of a volume thing, if you get my drift, and more of an opportunity to market yourself that way through all of the children's books to help other authors find you and other listeners find you. So I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing to have the same price point for children's books as for regular, other non-children's books, because you don't want to try to justify and explain to a children's book author that your price is higher than the base price for a novella. I think that's a slippery slope that you probably don't want to get yourself into. So for myself, I kept my price point the same for both. For example, on Fiverr for my audiobook gig, my base pricing for my gig is 1,250 words for $35. So the very least I make is 35 for a children's book because most of them are under 1,000 words. But that at least covers the time that it takes to make the children's book. But so that's roughly about 250 per finished hour is what it comes out to be. But and I keep my price at 35 because I think that is a good entry point to catch the attention of people scrolling through looking for audiobook narrators. I've tried all kinds of different prices. I've tried 20, 25, 50, 100, 150, 40, and right now it seems like 35 is a good place to be. Might change it around again, but right now it seems like I'm doing okay with that price point, so I'm going to stick with that. But again, trying to validate a different price or a a higher price for a children's book is going to be difficult. Unless there's a lot of other aspects to the children's book that other books don't have, like there's a lot of mixing and music and sound effects and characters or something like that, maybe. But again, that's a slippery slope that I don't want to have to climb. So I keep everything the same price point. Keisha says my DAW is Audacity. Awesome. Yeah, that's a good one. Where'd I go? All right. Okay. Andy Moore says, at Padrika Gray, give coconut oil a shot instead of WD-40. The stuff stops all our old door hinges from squeaking. That's a great idea. Coconut oil is the new WD-40, the all-natural WD-40. That's a good idea. I'll have to keep that one in my pocket. Andy Moore says, K&M do musician stool. Oh, yeah, musician stools. That's what I was looking for with the drum stool. That's what I was looking for, musician stools. Got one of their mic arms, and it is solid as houses. Secret Lab prices, ouch. That's half a TLM 103, LOL. It is. They are an investment, but mine came with a 5-year warranty, and this is probably the most comfortable chair I've ever sat in. And it looks cool. And dragons. Because I said to myself, a couple of years ago, I said, okay, I need a comfortable chair. Who sits in chairs for hours and hours and hours? Gamers. So I went and looked for a gaming chair. And this is what I came up with. This one is highly regarded. And again, comes with a killer warranty. And I think when I bought this chair, there was a sale going on. So I actually got a decent price for it, but still, nevertheless, an investment. And I am very, very happy with this chair, for sure. But you're right. It's an investment. Tone Chaser says, rock and sock drum throne with backrest add-on. So, hey, I hope Kirk is still here. Kirk was looking for a chair, too. Maybe we should check that one out for you. Padrika Gray says, last question. When authors provide 3 pages of audition script, is it appropriate to only record a 2 to 3 minute audition? Yes. That is about the max I will use for an audition, is about 2 to 3 minutes. Because A rights holder is going to have more than your audition. They're going to have 10, 20, 30, 40 auditions to listen to, and they're going to make a decision on whether or not they like your voice or if you are a fit for their book or what they had in mind in the first 5 to 10 seconds, maybe less. So having an entire script is probably pointless. I think 3 minutes is probably sufficient for an audition, for sure. Jim says champagne. Thank you. Champagne. Tone Chaser says, when you edit out a clicker click, do you keep a copy of room tone to paste in and trim to fit? What I do is after I record a piece and right before I go in to edit it, I will copy some of the room tone at the head of the file and then use that, like you said, to copy and paste or to paste in over big breaths, anything that I'm repairing. Clicks typically get just either deleted or pasted over with room tone, but I use the room tone in the file that I'm editing to do that with. I don't have I've heard some people tell me that they have a folder of room tone to use for every file that they edit or work on. And I think using the tone from the file that you're editing every time is going to help it match every time, because sometimes there's a little bit more noise just outside your room than other days, and it's not going to match. So I think the best way to have your room tone be consistent throughout the entire piece is to use the room tone that is in the file that you're working on each and every time to make it consistent. But yes, I do that. I paste over the clicks, big breaths, mistakes, whatever it is, and that saves me a lot of time and keeps it consistent sounding. So yes, I do. Where did I go? Here I am. Okay, Padrika says, thanks everyone for the chair suggestions. I hope that helps. Definitely check some of those out and let us know what you think and if you went with one of those or if you went the coconut oil route. I would like to know if that worked for you. Adina Flores says, great. Thanks so much for your input. You are so very welcome, Adina. All right, let's go back over to the poll really quick. Okay, we are up to 41 votes, and 22% of you said yes, that you would listen to an audiobook narrated by an AI, and 78% said no. Wow. That is interesting. For those of you that voted yes, although if you don't want to out yourself in the comments, that's fine too. But if you're okay with it, I'd like to know why. Why would you listen to an audiobook narrated by an AI? Because I find that extremely interesting. Unless you have a lot of faith in AI to make it an entertaining and engaging audiobook to listen to. And again, I may be a little biased, but still, I'm curious. I'm curious as to why you would listen to an audiobook by AI or narrated by an AI. Okay, let's head back down. Is it Locky? Locky. L-O-K-K-Y, Locky? Please make a video VO editing tutorial with Audacity. I don't currently use Audacity. I use Adobe Audition. So I do tutorials with Adobe Audition, just sharing what I know. I have had a lot of people ask for tutorials on Audacity. And I think what I would do is maybe to create a complete course tutorial on Audacity. I know, Anthony Pica already has one. He has an Audacity for Beginners course, I believe. If you go to his website, avosjourney.com, he has a ton of courses there. He's actually my coach. I coached with him for a couple years ago now, and now I coach for him in his academy. But he has a course on Audacity for Beginners, I believe. So if you don't want to wait on me, you could definitely hop on over there and check out his course on learning Audacity. And I think there's a lot of YouTube videos also that probably cover Audacity, although I don't know if it's in a voiceover respect, but it could be enough to get you by. But again, Anthony's got a course that's ready to go if you want to do that. Dean Bruno, hello, says, were you nervous, scared when you first started out? Absolutely terrified. That negative self-critic in your head, you're excited and terrified all at the same time. Because especially when you start recording your first few files and then you're listening back to the audio and you're just going, ugh, why would anybody want to listen to this? This is horrible, right? But they do. You just have to maybe tweak this or refine that so the sound is better, the quality is better, your delivery and your performance is better. But people do. And it took a long time for me to get over the fact that I don't completely stink, and people do want to hear me, and and to just let go of that fear. I mean, I still get a little bit anxious sometimes if, everybody has those days, where you just hit that record button and you're just doubting everything that you're doing. But then 9 times out of 10, the client says, I love it. This is exactly what I was looking for. And then you just kind of, okay, great. And it's a little bit of a confidence boost because you doubted yourself, but you did it just fine. The client was happy. And ultimately that's all that matters, that the client is happy. And that's what they were wanting you to do. But it is scary, especially in the beginning. And feeding your confidence is going to take a while because everything is so new and intimidating and technical, and you don't know the lingo and the terminology, and people are using these words and you don't know what they mean. It is scary. It is scary in the beginning, but you just have to punch fear in the face and keep going, right? You have to. I'm proof. You can get through it. You just have to persevere. You just have to keep pushing forward. You got it. You got this. I lost my spot. Oh, Samuel Stout says, I want a do-over. LOL. Accidentally hit yes. Meant no. What? Did you send something before? Did you send a question? Hang on. I don't see you, Sam. I don't see anything from you. Did I miss something? I want a do-over. I'm sorry. I think I don't see anything else from you. But thanks for joining today. Kirk says, the Rockin' Sock doesn't look like it would work for me. However, it does look like a good stool. It's about $300 on Sweetwater with the additional backrest. That's also an investment. I think any way you look at it, a comfy chair that's going to last, because I don't want to buy a chair that looks cool and then it's comfortable for like a couple of months and then it starts falling apart because it was cheap. It's one of those things where cheap is not necessarily good and good is not necessarily cheap. You can't have, you could buy a chair and then have it fall apart and then you just got to go buy another one. That is why I invested in this Secret Lab chair. And I know, Kirk, it's not going to fit in your small space, but my meaning is that I'm going to invest in something. I know it's going to last. I know it's going to last me a while and that I don't have to make this investment again for a long time. So for me, I'd rather invest in something that's going to have some longevity and some peace of mind and is going to work the way that I need it to than having to buy multiples of a thing because it's cheap, But that's just me. Oz Lopez says, hello, Angela. In addition to soundproofing your surroundings, do you use additional software to cancel small background noise? Neighbor has 2 small dogs that bleed through. Oof. I feel your pain. I had a neighbor, he's still there, but he at least brings his dog inside now. But I would go talk to the neighbor first and foremost if there's a way that he can at least be aware that his dogs are very noisy. But to answer your question, yes, I have a DBX 286S in here that is a preamp and processor, and it has all kinds of different settings on it for de-essers and bass treble, highs, lows. But mainly, I use it for the noise gate that it has because it seems to work for me in my recording space, although it took a long, long time to find the sweet spot where it didn't destroy my voice completely, but it would still um, cancel out some of the ambient noise that's in this room because my recording space is literally 15 feet away from a playground outside. I live in a complex, um, a townhouse complex. There's a lot of other people that are in close proximity, so there's a lot of ambient noise outside. So the DBX does really, really well in cutting through most of that. But if those sharp spikes of dogs, small dog barks, are going to probably be an issue. So I would probably go and talk to your neighbor and let them know maybe what you're doing and if they can move the dogs to a separate part of the house at certain times of the day. It might be a hairball, but I mean it's worth trying to fix the problem at the root versus trying to put a band-aid on it and destroying your voice in the process, if that makes sense. But I feel your pain, dude. That's rough. I wish you the best on that one. Edwin00 says, well, I would listen to an AI reading, but I would be evaluating if it would still connect to me the same as a human voice would. And as a competitor, I want to see what it could do too. Interesting. I think I just heard one that was pretty impressive, although I'm sure it's not a mainstream available voice. But I want to say it was like it was some sort of a Google AI voice that was really impressive. But again, probably way too expensive for mainstream use. But yeah, I don't know. It'd be interesting to see where we go from here with AI. Ian Ricaldi? Sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong. Hi, Miss Angela. I just want to say thank you for this unsolicited advice from you. Following your advice, I'm almost finished setting up my gig. God bless you. Well, thank you, Ian. And I appreciate that. And thank you so much for being here and participating. It's always nice to hear from someone just starting who found me and found my little videos to be informative and at the very least entertaining. Because I'm a goober. But I'm very happy for you. I'm glad that you're setting up your gigs. I hope everything works out for you and keep us posted on how you're doing. Dean Bruno says, I ask because I've gone through coaching and I have everything I need. It's just extremely nerve-wracking to go full steam ahead. Thank you for your awesome answer. I appreciate it and love your content. It is terrifying, especially when you go full-time. I think that was one of the most terrifying yet liberating moments of my life, to be honest. But when you're ready, you will know. There will be signs. When you start to make more money with your voiceover business than you are being employed, by someone else, is probably a good indication that you're heading that direction. But don't overlook having a nest egg, having a few months worth of bills saved up in savings to take care of yourself. Make sure all of your memberships are paid, all of that stuff before you go full time. Take it slow and definitely plan it out. Have health insurance lined up if you have health insurance through your employer. I'm going to go off on a completely different tangent, but long story short, when you know when it's time. But it is terrifying, for sure. Edwin says the AI Terminator better watch out for me too, because hasta la vista, baby. Punch AI. And fear in the face too. I love that. I think that's a new t-shirt. Punch AI and fear in the face. Love it. Samuel Stout says, hi, Angela, referring to the AI book. Oh, yeah. Oh, no. So you hit yes instead of no. I got you. I'm with you. Padrika Gray says, well, I thought last question, but how long should I ask an author to give me to produce a 10,000 word book? A week or 30 days? I try to get 30 days on everything because I want to have some time to move things around if I get more than one. A 10,000 word book could really be done, if you're full time, could be done in a day or two, a few days, maybe definitely less than a week. But if you're just starting out, I would definitely give yourself some time. I would ask for the rights holder to give you a month and just tell them that you have other books in queue currently. And that is why you're asking for that time. But that will take the pressure off your back so you can do it right, do it well, have the time to revise and make sure that it's formatted properly. You got all those breaths out. You can really take your time and make sure that you're happy with the final result before you turn it in to the client. So to answer your question, in reality, less than a week for sure. But I generally try to get a month on just about everything I do so I can juggle and make sure that I can get everything done. Kirk says, LOL, I just checked on the Secret Lab site just to make sure. Yeah, too big. Yeah, 2.76. Yeah, they're pretty wide. I need no larger than 24. Another studio construction project. That was going to be my first suggestion, was just to find a different recording space, but that's, easier said than done. Oz Lopez says, thank you, Angela, for answering. I'm looking for that sweet spot. LOL. I love dogs, not these two. Yeah, I feel your pain on that one, Ozzy. Jake Alden says, hi, Angela. What happens if I revise a recording several times, but the client never seems satisfied? I don't run into this often, but when it happens, it's difficult to resolve. When I have this issue and the client's telling me to do it a certain way, and I think that I'm doing it that way, but it's not that way in the client's opinion, I ask them to give me an example. Ask the client to record something in the tone or the manner in which they are looking for. So you have an idea, because clearly you're not picking up what they're putting down, right? So if they can find something on YouTube, on TV, if they can record something themselves to give you an example of what it is that they're looking for, that might help you to better understand what they need or want, and then give it another try. I think in extreme circumstances, when this has happened to me, I've just ended up canceling the order. Because if they're never going to be happy and they're probably going to leave a poor review because you just can't get what they want, it might be better just to bite the bullet and part ways. But I would ask them for an example first. Tone Chaser says, do VO standing up is my initial approach. Should be better breathing wise and engaging your diaphragm for sure. Not quite singing, but it's close. Producers won't want you sitting to sing. Yeah, and I personally, I think I would probably do better in here standing up. I just don't have the room. So I have to sit. There's not enough room in here to open the door and then have all my gear in here and then also stand. Yeah, I think standing would be better for VO for sure. But you got to do what you got to do in the space that you have. And I think I've been doing okay sitting down. So Ian says, hi, ma'am. If client asks for a sample, do you have any advice on how to handle it? Like minimum words to give and Fiverr mark. Thank you. When someone asks me for a sample, a custom sample, meaning they want a sample of something that they have written, their script, I always set the expectation up front. I have no problem sending you a short, complimentary sample. And then they'll send you the script that they want to hear, and then I record a few sentences, maybe. Never the entire script. You never want to read the entire script for free. Because not everybody is going to be honest and honorable with that recording. So just record a couple of sentences, but make sure you set that expectation up front that it is a short, complimentary sample. So anything other than, and you can set it to whatever word count you want. You want to do 100 words, 200 words, and you can tell them anything over this amount of words is going to cost X. Right? But I have no problem giving clients samples. If they want something, if they are an agent themselves and they want something of yours to send to a client, you can also offer to send your ready-made demos. Also, download it onto Fiverr so they can upload it and send it to their clients if they want to, if that's what they're looking for. I'm trying to get through the questions quickly because we're already eclipsing an hour here. Ruthie says, Farand, what do you charge to be my coach? If if derailed my train of thought. Uh, on my website, voiceoverangela.com, I have a few different options for learning with me. I have a group that we meet every week and catch up, and I do tutorials and stuff. I have courses, I have one-on-one sessions, and then I also have mentorship programs where you can meet up with me once a week for 4 weeks or 12 weeks, however you want to do it. But there's a few different options. So check out my website, voiceoverangela.com, and go to the VO workshop. Start there, and hopefully that'll answer some questions for you. Tone Chaser says, but Angela definitely rocks VO sitting, so I think I'm doing okay. And yeah, I kind of just have to make do with what I have, and this is what I have, and I think I do okay. So, I mean, hey, I'm making it work, right? Federica Gray says, thanks very much. You're welcome. Jake says, thank you. You're welcome. Musical Neptunian says, in such cases, the client probably doesn't know what they want. Yes, or how to articulate what they want. So asking for an example or a sample of what they want is usually going to be the fastest way to kind of eliminate all the back and forth and just hear exactly what they want. And sometimes I find that what they send me is exactly how I delivered it the first time. But you never know. Ivy Alice 09 says, hi, if I wanted someone to listen to a clip to make sure I'm on the right track for quality-wise before jumping in, do I have to hire an engineer, or is there a recommendation on where to reach out to? You could do what most of us do and just watch a ton of YouTube videos. Find what works best for you in terms of DAW and recording position and all of that stuff. And once you have some samples recorded, join some Facebook groups too, some voiceover Facebook groups, and make some connections, make some friends. But you can also have people listen to your demos in your Facebook groups, and their trained ears will tell you what they hear and maybe what you need to address. And then at some point, if you want to, you can hire an audio engineer to help you with your recording space and your sound and setting up maybe effects to help bring out the best in your voice. Some coaches can do that for you too. But there's a few different ways to do it depending on where you're at within your journey. Let's see, but quality-wise before jumping in. Yeah, I think in your case, join some Facebook groups for sure, some voiceover community Facebook groups, and post a demo in your Facebook group and ask for feedback. And, take it with a, not a grain of salt. That's not what I wanted to say, but some people might have very polite, constructive criticism, and some might be very flat out and brash. But you just have to kind of take what you hear and apply it in the best way that you can. But overall, the VO community is very, very loving and supportive and helpful. And most of us just want to help you get started because we all have been there at some point. So we all want to help and put our arms around you and help as best we can. But that's what I would do. I would, join some Facebook groups and have them listen to a demo and ask for feedback. Flame Wingman says, hi, Angela. Do you want to act on camera in the future? I haven't seen someone ask you this. Do I want to act on camera in the future? No. No. This is about as far as I'm going to get to acting on camera. Yeah, that's about it for me. Yeah, we'll leave that there. You're right. No one has ever asked me that before. And I have had clients ask to do on-screen spokesperson or e-learning type of tutorials on camera that are scripted. And I've always said, no, I don't offer those kinds of services. I'm just too much of an introvert. I think those would take a lot more time than just providing the audio for these types of projects. But no, I don't offer any on-camera kind of work. Ivy Alice 09 says, thank you. You're welcome. Okay, I think this will be the last question. Ruthie says, I'm brand new but haven't had a nibble on from Fiverr or Upwork. Any thoughts? It usually takes a while. I think it took me a good couple of months before I saw anything on any of these platforms, but you do have to market yourself through these platforms because nobody knows that you're there. So you need to reach out to clients on these platforms. On Fiverr, you have buyer's requests. Those are jobs that are posted that are soliciting um, uh, freelancers for bids on their projects. So on buyer's requests, you want to go in there and submit bids on jobs that are available. And that is the only way that you can market yourself on Fiverr to other sellers. Um, Upwork is mostly a website where you bid on jobs anyway. So I would definitely do that, bid on jobs. But if you don't reach out to clients, they don't know that you're there. You have to get in front of as many eyeballs as you can. And this is something that, again, it's a marathon and not a sprint. It's going to take some time. But the seeds you plant today are what you can reap a year from now, for sure. But you just need to keep consistent and keep at it, and you will continue to grow. But it will take time in the future. Everything good does take time. Alice says, hit the like, everyone. You're a rock star, Alice. Alice Farina says, hit the like, everyone. Hit that like button, everyone. You guys rock. Thank you, Angela, for your time and generosity. I think that needs a clapping. I'm sorry if this is irritating, but I think we need to do it. That was for Alice. Thank you, Alice. You rock. Andy Moore says, thanks. Have a great week. Okay, I'm going to wrap it up here, guys. Thank you, everybody, for coming in today and participating in the poll, which I'm going to end right now and touch on real quick. 53 votes. 53 votes. So 75% of you said no, and 25% of you said yes, you would listen to an audiobook narrated by an AI. I think from what I'm understanding, it's mainly out of curiosity that you would want to, but you know, everyone's got their thing. I'm not, no judgment here at all. So again, thank you everybody for stopping by and asking questions and saying hi and spending some time with me today. I really appreciate it. And hit that like and subscribe button. As always, thank you for your time. I appreciate you, and I'll see you.